Ria Bond.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm pleased to rise on behalf of New Zealand First and my colleague Barbara Stewart to take the second reading in the Compensation for Live Organ Donors Bill. So just before I start, I just want to say thank you to Lewis Will for taking us down through the history trip of how bills like this actually transformed, and the pioneers too. Great bills like this. I'd like to congratulate Chris Bishop of having your bill pulled out of the biscuit tin and having the honour of watching it go through the passage of this House. Mr Speaker, the purpose of this bill is to adequately support those who choose to make selfless choices and life-changing decisions to donate an organ. Mr Speaker, New Zealand First supports this bill. Organ donation is indeed a selfless act and one that is critical for the health of New Zealanders awaiting organ transplants. There are two types of organ donations, from donated from living persons and also deceased persons. This bill, of course, deals with live donations. The most common organ donated by a living person is a kidney with parts of the liver and lungs that can also be transplanted. This is a huge issue for us. We have such high rates of kidney disease here in New Zealand. Earlier this year, Kidney Health New Zealand reported that there are 300,000 Kiwis with chronic kidney disease. 90% of those will end up progressing to end-stage kidney disease, where they will require either long-life dialysis or a transplant. They reported that there were 2,678 patients receiving dialysis at a cost of between $30,000 and $60,000 a year. Interestingly enough, 1 in 10 Kiwis suffer from early-stage kidney disease, and that's seriously concerning, Mr Speaker. Despite such a high rate of disease, we know that unfortunately the rate of organ donation in New Zealand is very low. In fact, we are well behind Australia. The Ministry of Health advised the Select Committee that donations from both live and deceased donors is not enough to meet the demand. Whilst this bill is not expected to have significant effect on the number of donors, it does provide one way to support those who have made such a life-changing decision, both for the donor and the recipient. Currently, according to Kidney Health New Zealand, more than 600 New Zealanders are waiting for an organ transplant, and approximately 450 of those are waiting for a kidney transplant. Clearly, something needs to change to increase the rates of donors in New Zealand. Mr Speaker, I'd like to share a small story. One of my friends, a very good friend of mine, had decided that she would donate to a young girl. And my friend took it so seriously that she had to be on quite a critical diet. She had to watch everything she did, everything she drank. She had to forego alcohol, and when you're in your 20s, it's not that easy. And I was really proud with what my friend achieved, and the love for this young lady, for her to donate an organ, made us all as a group aware of what we could be doing. I also want to talk about the Fitbit challenge that Lewis Willis and others have talked about tonight, and it's in support of type 2 diabetes. I'm a type 2 diabetic, Mr Speaker, and one day I may need someone to help me and donate to me, which is why I think this bill is so important, and that is why New Zealand First is also supporting this bill. So, Mr Speaker, it is an issue that can only get worse because we do have not enough donors, and it is timely that tonight we are debating this bill in the House. But we need to do more to lift the rates of organ donation, such as educate our public more, and improvements are made to the system too. There is another little thing that I do want to touch upon. When I was growing up in our Māori family with our elders, donating our organs was a no-no. We were always told that the way that we are born for Māori is the way that we shall leave. So it was, I guess, entrenched in us that it was tapu to have bits of our body taken away from us. And that's what we've grown through with the generation. But I can see that with educating our whānau, our Māori whānau, that we shouldn't be scared to help someone live and to help someone have a better life outcome had they not donated. Mr Speaker, is something that myself and my generation are trying to talk our next generation to. And they're more wiser now too, they're more open to change. It's not such I guess, a taboo. Should you consider to give one of your organs away, and we're kind of happy that I guess our grandparents are gone, because if they could hear what I was saying in the house tonight, I'd be in so much trouble. So, you know, I'm glad that times are changing, and that hopefully, because Māori are high users or recipients of organs, that they can see it within themselves to understand that this is a really important bill, and it's really important to help make a change in someone's life. So this bill is designed to remove the financial barrier that currently exists for donors, which has been identified as one of the reasons why organ donation rates are so low here in New Zealand. We know that dialysis is expensive, and an increasing number of Kiwis rely on it to survive. Savings to the health system of a 50-year-old patient having a transplant as opposed to staying on dialysis would amount to be more than $120,000, even taking into account the expected life expectancy, likely to be twice as long. But we know that it is not all about the money, and the most important thing is to get to those who need organ transplants and those organ people to be able to donate, so that the recipients can live a longer and happier life, and actually have quite a fulfilling one too. Mr. Speaker, New Zealand First is becoming increasingly concerned about what we are seeing as a postcode lottery health system. More and more often, health outcomes are dependent on where you live. This bill seeks to address this in a minor way, or in a significant way, as financial barriers are removed. We know that currently there are those who would desperately like to donate an organ to a family or a friend, but simply cannot afford to take time off work to receive a sickness benefit, which is the current situation. This means that the rich can afford treatment and the poor cannot. An unacceptable situation in New Zealand. I'm sure everyone in the House agrees. Many people I talk to about this are shocked at the current system. They cannot believe that Kiwis who undergo such a life-changing procedure and a selfless act for the benefit of others actually end up worse off financially. They agree with us here in the House that this is a drastic need for change, and they are happy that this bill has come through. The House Select Committee had considered this bill in detail. They received 110 submissions. Many submitters shared their personal stories with the Select Committee, and I hear that some of them were quite harrowing. We heard from submitters that a loss of income was a financial barrier to donor donation, and some had delayed donating until they had enough money in their savings account to do this. We had many submitters talk to us about the reality involved in being a donor, trips to the hospital, childcare arrangements, cost of family visits to the hospital, and disruption of family life in general. They also talked about the emotional, physical, and mental costs that they went through, all of which should be compensated adequately. We also heard from many patients who are suffering whilst waiting to receive an organ transplant. We heard about from Kiwis, about what it's like to be on a perennial dialysis, a treatment for patients with severe chronic kidney disease. One submitter told us that she had to give up work after being on dialysis, as it took such a physical and emotional toll on her. We also heard from those who had received organ donations. They are so appreciative that they are able to start a normal life again. The impact on individuals and families of giving people a second chance and getting people back up and running cannot be underestimated. Submitters were in favour of increasing the compensation rate to donors from 80%, as it was originally suggested, to 100% for the first 12 weeks of recovery. New Zealand First is in support of the level of cost neutrality compensation as in standard like it is in the UK. The idea is that donating an organ should not advantage or disadvantage the donor financially. We believe this still ensures that donors do not lose out for making such a huge decision. Mr. Speaker, in the first reading, my colleague Barbara Stewart raised the point that we do not want to move towards monetary-based compensation for organ donors. We believe that the compensation figure of 100% is fair and it is reasonable. It is also important that altruism remains the motivation of organ donation, not financial compensation. New Zealand First is in favour of the responsibility for the administration of this bill moving from the Ministry of Social Development to the Ministry of Health. We heard from submitters about the difficulties that donors went through when accessing compensation from MSD. Mainly it was due because of the lack of understanding from the MSD. It would be important that the Ministry of Health develop a sound system so that the experiences for donors to access compensation is seamless and it's stress-free. We are pleased that the Select Committee has removed the need for beneficiaries to submit their working obligations when they have to leave to have donor surgeries. It has been decided that donors should receive the reimbursement for 100% of their income, regardless of beneficiary status. We believe that this clarifies the concern raised by the Attorney General regarding the Human Rights Act 1993. Thank you.
Jackie Dean.